Welcome to CHED Connect, a higher education open educational resource application. CHED Connect contains higher education materials which are useful for teaching, learning, and research purposes. It allows learners and educators to access content anytime, anywhere, free of charge. No registration needed. Just type in the keyword of the topic you wish to search. Click on the categories of the Philippine Standard Classification of Education and browse your way to its rich content. CHED Connect is easy to use. Just key in your area of interest. The site offers different relevant and interesting materials to choose from, scholarly prepared, accomplished, and uploaded by competent faculty members and contributors from various partner Philippine higher education institutions. Guided by the principles of open educational resources, these materials such as PDF, audio files, ebooks, presentations, videos, and many more are very beneficial. CHED Connect. We educate as one.
Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our 11th webinar entitled Academic Management and Leadership Challenges in the Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Era. Thank you for viewing live in this webinar broadcasted via HECBOL's Facebook page and YouTube channel. This activity is also made possible in partnership with the Ministry of Basic, Higher, and Technical Education in Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. This afternoon, a very competent person will be sharing his expertise in the field of leadership and management. I am Even Stephanie Bolido, your moderator this afternoon. To formally begin this program, please help me welcome the Director of HECBOL Project, Dr. Nelia A. Alibin.
Thank you, Eden. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to once again welcome all of you to HECBOL Online. Welcome to our 11th webinar entitled Academic Management and Leadership Challenges in the Pandemic and Post-Pandemic Era. I would like to acknowledge the presidents, heads, administrators, faculty members, and students not only in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, but all over the country. My colleagues in the Commission on Higher Education and our partners from the Ministry of Basic, Higher, and Technical Education, BARMM, all school officials, and to all our viewers and followers. Again, thank you for watching and joining us live this afternoon. This is part of CHED-HECBOL Project's capability building activities for the higher education institutions in the country, most especially to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARMM. The webinar today focuses on two very important phases: academic management and leadership challenges in a college or university setting. Leading a higher education institution in a crisis is stressful, given that the role and the influence of the leaders are magnified in times of change. Leaders are those who look at what was going to be needed 2 weeks, a month, and 2 months from now. They should be strategic and weren't simply concerned with what was going on today. Effective leaders were able to systematically anticipate what they would need down the road. They made sure their systems were being well managed today and knew that management needed to change. They got the systems in place so that when the difficult day comes, they will be ready. For today, I am so glad that our speaker, Dr. Ronnie V. Amorado, will be sharing his thoughts and experiences on leadership and management. He is the Senior Vice President, Academic Affairs of University of Mindanao. Thank you, Dr. Ronnie, for accepting our invitation. As an end note to all our followers, I want to express my gratitude on behalf of the Commission on Higher Education and, of course, the HECBOL Project. We hope that you continue to watch our webinars, follow our HECBOL FB page, and subscribe to our HECBOL YouTube channel for some updates about higher education, about CHED activities, and of course, other reminders. I express my sincere thanks to all the many individuals from CHED, the BARMM Ministry's Basic, Higher, and Technical Education, and to all our subscribers. Let us continue to contribute to the success of higher education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Nelia, for that opening remarks. In our 10th webinar, we explored the internationalization of higher education through Professor Dean Neubauer. To continue the momentum and see a different viewpoint, ladies and gentlemen, let me formally introduce to you our resource speaker. Our resource speaker is a passionate researcher, prolific literature, and award-winning author, an unconventional academic in various capacities as a professor, researcher, director, and academic vice president. He is a Hubert H. Humphrey Fellow in the United States, where he did his postdoctorate research at Maxwell School of Citizenship in Syracuse University, New York. He authored and co-authored several books on leadership and citizenship, Pakistocracy and Peripatetic, corruption and anti-corruption research. His book, Fixing Society, was awarded the Outstanding Book Award in 2008 by the National Academy of World Researcher and Outstanding World Research Advocate Award in 2013. He was awarded the Best Asian Book for Teaching Research by the Asian Society of Teachers of Research. His latest book, Peripatetic, Practical Lessons on Leadership, is an ardent authorial endeavor of the depiction and social commentary. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor that I present to you Dr. Ronnie V. Amorado.
Good
Sir,
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Eden. Good afternoon to all our audience here in the module for this afternoon. Assalamualaikum, and thank you very much for inviting me also to CHED and to all our friends in the BARMM. The topic assigned to me is all about the academic management and leadership challenges, specifically in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. No? Let me present the flow and a bit of the rationale, no, of the topic, no, through some questions. No. First is, what is academic management and leadership? And this is very particularly interesting for schools and universities. And then, what are the typologies of academicians? And what is a peripatetic academic? And how can academic management meld with quality assurance? No? There are a few slides to discuss about quality assurance and its importance and the different measures, no, for quality assurance in academic work. And then, what are the pandemic and post-pandemic challenges, and how can academics lead in pandemic and post-pandemic situations? Let me start by posing this slide of the academe and academicians. It started with the concept of academe or academia, which refers to a community of scholars where intellectuals meet and learn. And this is inspired by the legend of the Athenian hero Academus and made part of Plato's works in establishing the first academy in 387 BC. If you'll notice, the first academy became the de facto first school in the world, basically. Then later on, centuries later, the concept of university or universitas developed, and it refers to a community of masters, scholars, and sages seeking for the whole truth together. Okay, coming from the root word or the root phrase, no, universitas magistrorum et scholarium, and then it began somewhere in the 10th century. This is very important because the academicians or people who work in the academe actually they belong to these two concepts, the academia and the universitas. And we all know that the modern day, concept of universities, colleges, the academe, they all started with these two concepts. So, who are the academicians? Okay, there are several typologies, but there are two classifications of academicians. The first classification is the so-called seekers of knowledge. And then the second one are the so-called managers of knowledge or academic administrators. I'll start with the academic administrators, no? Because this is the most common. Certainly, we have the university presidents, okay? And then the universities can be either private or public or sectarian or non-sectarian. So state universities, they belong to the public non-sectarian. Private universities, they have the sectarian, those owned and operated by religious orders. Then we also have the private non-sectarian, owned by lay people or businessmen. So all of these are headed by university presidents. Other countries, because of their traditions in the academe, they call them also the chancellors or the regents. No? We have the academic vice presidents, we have deans, principals, we have program heads, we have coordinators, we have accreditors, we have assessors, trainers, coaches, monitors, evaluators. We also have the agency regulators. So in the education sector, our agency regulators are the CHED, the DepEd, even the TESDA. And now, because of the nature of the licensure examinations, even the PRC, they form part of the agency regulators, the direct agency regulators. We have indirect agency regulators because the schools are legal entities, so we have to deal with BIR, with DOLE as far as employees are concerned, even SSS, PhilHealth, and so on and so forth. These are the indirect regulators, no? And they concern themselves with the operations of the school. So all of these are the so-called managers of knowledge. The other classification is the seekers of knowledge. No? These are the thinkers, the philosophers. No? These are the learners, the students, or proteges or students, scholars, researchers, intellectuals or masters, scientists or experts, fellows or so-called academic fellows or experts, sages. No? In the olden time, you have this concept of sages, no? Gurus. No? We also have the professors, gurus, no? Educators also. They're also considered as gurus. Of course, we have the masters and the doctors. No? These are the degrees of higher learning. So if you ask me, are bachelor degrees part of the seekers of knowledge? Yes, to some extent, yes, but to a greater extent, a bit no also, because bachelor degrees, we prepare students sometimes to practice, no, their profession. So in that sense, they don't belong to the academicians. But bachelor graduates who opt to proceed to higher learning and take their master and doctoral degrees, then they become part of the seekers of knowledge. So these are the academicians, no, the seekers of knowledge and the managers of knowledge. So therefore, what is academic management? Academic management refers generally to the proper exercise of allocating and utilizing resources in academic institutions in the service of academic goals. Academic goals would refer to the vision, mission, and values, and academic standards for various internal and external stakeholders. Of course, our direct external stakeholders, no, our clients, no, are the students and the parents. No? So, and of course, we have our employees, our teachers, our managers, academic managers. So these are all part of the internal stakeholders as well. There are types of academicians, no? According to Dr. Buller in his book on positive academic leadership. No? So there are those so-called as positive academics, prolific academics, negative academics, disposable academics, perfunctory academics, or acerbic academics. No? Let me just flash the slides now quickly for each of these types. No? So positive academics are those who provide leadership in their areas of expertise and specialization. They constantly create opportunities and value adding, never satisfied on what has been done, and make a difference to create impact. They always aspire in doing something different, hopeful and anticipative as they find opportunity in adversity. So the many seekers of knowledge and managers of knowledge can fall under this category of positive academics with this kind of description. And sometimes positive academics, they turn out to become prolific academics, those who contribute and not content with mere credentials and position. They participate and engage or offer ideas or take action. They are felt by others because of their brilliance and being imbued with spirited disposition. So magkapinsan, no? Si positive academic at si prolific academics. Negative academics, these are the opposite of the positive and the prolific academics. No? They see only the short-term comfort against long-term gains. No? Ito yung siguro laging nagko-complain, ito yung laging naghahanap ng bayad kapag may ginagawa. So always with pay. No? So they only see the short-term comfort against long-term gains. These are the negative academics. No? What are disposable academics? Disposable academics are just satisfied with their degrees and eventually stagnate, producing nothing beyond being a daily teacher. Now, I'd like to describe this a bit, because many of our graduates in the higher, for those for seeking for higher learning in the master and doctoral degrees, and many of them join the academic institutions, they tend to be satisfied with their degrees, and they see their degrees, no, as the final stage of their of learning. No? They equate the degree, the credentials with learning. No? And I'd like to make an observation that, because one of the things I learned from my professors in the US, when they tell me that your doctoral degree or your master degree is just the beginning, the first of your intellectual journey. That is not the end and state. But many of our graduates in the doctoral degrees and master degrees, they are so happy and they celebrate as if that's the last stage already. No? So those academicians who are just satisfied with their degrees and eventually stagnate, they produce nothing beyond being a daily teacher. These are the so-called disposable academics. No? Those who only teach. This is according to the perspective of Dr. Buller in his book, no, in the Peripatetic Academics. No? He gave a description of disposable academics. No? Of course, many may not agree with this conception. Perfunctory academics are merely content with the minimum standards of teaching in the classroom, uninvolved and disengaged in school initiatives and innovations. So perfunctory academics. And acerbic academics are predisposed to complaining and criticizing without positive contribution, and they're very critical of others. And they tend to condescend as they cloak in scholarly scrutiny. So ito yung laging criticize, nagko-complain, naghahanap ng kung ano ang mali. No? So in academic management, no, especially for academic managers, no, the managers of knowledge, no, we would want our people, we would want academicians who belong to the positive academics and prolific academics categories. No? Those who can contribute and do value adding, no? and add, no, value to what we are doing in the schools. No? We would not want to be people to join our ranks, no? The acerbic academics, even perfunctory academics, certainly the negative academics. Now, in my recent book, I'm also introducing the concept of peripatetic academics. No? Those who walk the talk. And peripatetic means to walk the talk. No? It comes from peripatoi, the ancient Greek covered pathwalk. No? In the modern translation, it refers to the covered pathwalk. No? During that time, it referred to a pathwalk. No? Because during that time, it derives from Aristotle's ancient tradition of teaching or talking while walking with his students in the peripatoi. No? So for those of you who are interested to get a copy of my book, I can give you the link or refer you to the Vibal publisher, a publishing company. No? We can coordinate with the CHED, no, for this, for those who are interested. And many of the lessons and the frameworks I will present here for academic management and leadership challenges, they actually also come from peripatetic books, no? The practical lessons on leadership. No? So educators are actually modern peripatetics because we need to revisit, no, the concept of role models and ascendancy. No? And educators just do not teach by what they say, they also teach by what they do. So as modern peripatetics, we have to walk the talk and not talk the talk. Educators need to live by what they teach and by what they preach. No? Just a bit of the orientation of what is contained in the peripatetic book. We have 3 chapters. Okay, the chapter 1 presents some advanced theory and practice in leadership and management, and chapter 2 on the applied art and science of leadership and management, which will discuss, no, the different perspectives of managing, no? Managing people, ideas, perceptions, so on and so forth, until managing organizations and culture, because everything will end as culture. No? Then chapter 3 is a dedicated chapter which will focus on the ethics, no? And some problems in ethics, no? Modern problems or unexplored problems in ethics, like kakistocracy, bureaucracy, adhocracy, idiocracy, even gerontocracy, which is now emerging in many schools. No? Gerontocracy refers to the rule of many aged or retired personnel. No? So how do we deal with them? No? And then corporatocracy and eucracy. And eucracy is the main crux of the book because it dwells on doing good and what is for the common good. And I'd like to highlight on the common good, especially with the pandemic era now, because if you look at the US, ang problema nila kasi yung individual freedom versus the collective or the common good, no? Yung wearing the mask, no? The wearing the mask becomes a political tool now, no? You wear the mask against your free will and freedom, okay? Or you wear the mask because of the common good, no? So that is where eucracy will come in, no? And if you will notice, if you will ask, no, leadership books are replete, no? So what is new with the peripatetic? There are 6 key themes here, no? It demystifies the leader or the manager, especially with academic manager, okay, the manager of the truth of the knowledge, no? It demystifies the person. It looks at the trait. No? Leadership is not inert, and the traits can be common to all. Therefore, if you go back to Buller's typologies of academicians, a person at any point in time can behave like a positive academic, a prolific academics, even negative, even acerbic, even perfunctory, and so on and so forth. Because the traits are common to all. Because the management and leadership concepts are not inert. So this is something that I propose in the book, and which will contradict other books on leadership also. Many books are considering only, referring only, concentrating only on the leader as a person. But peripatetic refers to the leadership behavior of a person, not to the person, the leader person. And the key here is cultivation. It is good leadership traits that shape a leader to become good, and it is bad leadership traits that form a leader to become bad. It all depends on exposure, experience, education, and cultivation. So sessions like this are very useful for cultivation. And in my book, I offer 100 practical lessons, okay, to help navigate and find our way, and about 34 frameworks, no, to steer the course. Our leadership predicaments today are ethical, cultural, organizational, political, economic, and more importantly, spiritual in nature. And the combination of all these factors are so powerful that leadership has become a complicated, no size fits all and no clean-cut concept, no? Kumbaga, walang isang perfectong leader sa lahat ng sitwasyon. And that's true to all, also for all schools and universities. And this is part of the book, and which is the main crux of academic management, no, and leadership development, the concept of eucracy, the rule of what is good, no? And here, the elements of eucracy that I discuss include euthenics, practical ethics, virtuosity, trust, integrity, citizenship, and then some Athenian Oath, which I will present later on. But I won't be able to discuss in details all of this. It will need more than a day of deepening session. But let me just introduce to you the concept of euthenics. In euthenics, we have 2 very important conditions now: the so-called eudemics and eugenics. Eudemics, people become good by improving our external conditions, and this is very important now with the pandemic crisis, because we have to work for and improve our external conditions, our environment, so that people will become good also. Okay, so that's part of eudemics, no? Meaning, if your system makes people bad or corrupt or anomalous or irregular, then that's a problem with eudemics. The other one is very controversial, eugenics, no? Improving the genes or inheritable factors, no? So merong mga naipapamanang mga ugali o mga kagagandahang asal sa ating kapwa-tao, no? Sa ating mga anak, sa mga sumusunod na mga henerasyon, no? So that's eugenics now. I tried to highlight on this because now with the pandemic, we need to work with eudemics. We need to improve our systems. And even in post-pandemic era, okay, many states, many organizations will fail because of the failure of eudemics. And of course, we would like to look into the eugenics also. The other elements of eucracy are also very interesting to look at, no? The concept of virtuosity, the virtuousness of people, no? What are the elements and the considerations, the different types of trust, especially in the public sector, no? What do we mean by betrayal of public trust, no? And then, of course, integrity, no? The two types of integrity. And all of this will make us become good citizens. No? A peripatetic academics would have to be imbued with yocracy and all of these elements. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd like to post, no, and ask our participants, no, from the audience, no, some steer exercise. No. Eventually, we'll have to ask ourselves, no, how do we differentiate a leader, a manager, or an administrator? Yes, we declared that one of the classifications of the academicians are the so-called managers of knowledge. No? So as managers of knowledge, we could be any of the three, as a leader, as a manager, and administrator. If you look at the literature, all of these three roles are almost overlapping, no? Overlapping, but there is a need to distinguish. There has to be a way of distinguishing a trait of a leader that is not present in the manager and the administrator. No? So at this point, I'd like to ask the participants to just flash your responses. I think then there is a link. No, we have to do some polling. I turn it over to Jean and Eden. There's a poll. There's a link to answer the questions. So the traits of a leader, of a manager, and administrator. And then we will just quickly do this in a couple of minutes. No, so Eden, Jean, please do the polling.
Yes, Doc. Good afternoon, everyone. So in our Facebook page and in our YouTube channel, we flash the link. Kindly log into the link and then write your answers. We have poliv.com/CHED-HECBOL LPR 910.
Okay, very good. Huh? So we are using the word. Yeah.
Yes, po, Doc. The greater the word, that's the higher the number of the responses.
So the bigger the word, no?
The bigger po, yes po.
Okay, some more. So your responses will form into a word cloud, no?
That's right, Doc.
Okay, so meron sumagot na encouraging, serving as an example, brave, doer, understanding. Okay, so visionary, okay, yeah. Democratic, no? Doer, brave, no? So apparently the consistent is at one trait of a leader is being an encouraging leader, no? Followed by visionary. Okay, so yun ang mga common responses ng mga participants. Sige. Okay, very good. So that gives me already an idea of how you understand the traits of the leader. Now, let's go to the next question, please. What are the traits of a manager in your own understanding? Eden?
Okay, second question.
Yeah, please.
We have here, yes. What are the traits of a manager? Okay.
Ruler.
Answers are coming now, Doc. Visionary.
Firm. Okay. Accountable. Understanding. So consistent yung firm, no? So a manager has to be firm, no?
That's right.
Oriented, understanding uli, knowledgeable, objective, exact. Okay. So ang consistent dito ay firm, to be firm, na. Sige. So the last question, Eden, let's look at what are the traits of an administrator naman.
So third question. Can you log into your answer? What are the traits of an administrator?
Clear. Clear. Accountable. No? Understanding. Strict.
Also goal-oriented.
Goal-oriented. No? Objective. Clear. Strict. Strict ang consistent. No? Strict. No? moral, follow. Lumalaki din siya, accountable, no?
Yes po.
Okay, so that should end. Okay, we can end the polling now. I go back to the slides, no? So thank you very much for all your responses. No? At least that gives us how we understand the concept of the leader, manager, and administrator. And then if you will notice, all of the three concepts have overlapping traits. No? They overlap. So that's why it's difficult to filter or identify one from the other. And true enough, in our school setting, in our organizations, a manager also leads, a leader also administers. So because of the overlapping nature. But one way to understand also academic management is to be able to distinguish what particular traits are just present or inherent among leaders, among managers, and among administrators. No? So this is where my book on peripatetic is trying to propose that there are differences. No? But before going to that, let me just post this. No? I think we will all agree that a manager may not be a good leader and vice versa. And how do we differentiate a manager from a leader? Normally, a manager is formal and institutionalized by authority. Okay? Without position, without organization, without authority, you cannot be called a manager. But a leader goes beyond what is formal. A leader can be informal and can also be institutionalized. No? And it is the source of influence and power is by charisma and influence. No? The manager, the source of power is the so-called legitimate authority or positional authority, otherwise known as positional power. Managers' functions are explicit, a leader's function is implicit, and the concern of the manager is to achieve the goals and the performance, the task performance. But the concern of the leader is not necessarily the goals, but sometimes effectiveness or outcomes. No? Gray area yun. So a manager is more of emphasis on efficiency or doing the things right, but a leader is emphasis on effectiveness, doing the right things. Ideally, an effective manager should be a good leader, and a good leader should be an effective manager, doing the right things right. Let me also present this perspective because, especially now with the pandemic, the two types of leadership models or leaders, the mechanistic and organic leaders. Mechanistic leadership, very concerned with division of labor, specialized tasks, very clear hierarchy of authority, precise definition of jobs, roles, duties, and responsibilities, centralized information and decision making. Especially with big organizations, you tend to become mechanistic. But with organic, persons with specialized knowledge go where they are needed, not necessarily with those who are in the position of authority. And the authority actually is vested in the person who can deal with the problem, whoever he is, not necessarily that he is the boss. No? Situational ang kanyang pananaw sa pamamahala, and therefore it constantly redefines the functions, the duties and responsibilities. If you will notice, organic leadership is a bit fluid compared to mechanistic leadership. No? But organic leadership is appropriate in any emergency, like the COVID pandemic now. So we yield to the experts of the time, of the exigency. And the experts now are the medical experts. Not necessarily that they are in positions of authority. Okay? So sa mechanistic kasi, kung sino ang boss, siya ang masusunod. Sa organic kasi, kung sino ang expert, sino ang magaling, siya ang masusunod. Okay? So doon ang magkakaiba yan. Mahalaga ito ngayon dahil sa pandemic ngayon. No? We need to exercise more of organic leadership, okay, than mechanistic leadership. Of course, we all know this, but it's always good to be reminded. No? A good leader or a good boss is not bossy. And we all know this. No? Iba yung bossy sa pagiging boss. No? Tama yung mga sagot kanina sa word cloud. No? A leader's traits, a manager's traits, and administrator's traits with regard to understanding, to encouraging, even to empowering. No? These are all traits of being a good leader or being a good boss, and not necessarily of being a boss. You know. Here, I'd like to offer a in my first framework of the peripatetic book, no, the so-called leadership triangle, where it tries to distill the roles of the three, no, managers, administrators, and leaders. No? So basically, managers optimize. What do you mean by optimize? You make the most, the best out of the least. No, you want to come up with the most effective with the least possible inputs. So more outputs than inputs. Kaya maintindihan mo mga managers, nagtitipid. Kahit may pera na nagtitipid yan kasi gusto niya efficiency ang concern niya kasi. Mas marami kang nabibili sa konting budget. So yun yung mga managers. We optimize. That's why uso yung kasabihan na sa langit, walang mga managers sa langit. You don't optimize resources there because there's abundance. But here on earth, our resources are finite. That's why we need to optimize. Administrators, the key trait of the administrators is they execute. That's why they administer, they execute. So they follow, no? So kaya mga building administrators, di ba? Or mga local government administrators, mga city administrators, provincial administrators, even administrative officers of national government agencies, no? They are generally under the so-called administrator, and they execute. What do they execute? Or what do they implement? Instructions, the laws, the programs, okay, anything that's approved. No? So whatever is approved in the organization, there are people who are very good in administrative skills. They execute properly. So sila yung mga nag-execute. Ngayon, ang problema ng mga administrators, if there is no clear-cut instruction, no clear-cut program, no law, there's nothing to execute. Makakagulo. Kaya sabi nga nila, if you want to kill an administrator, give them gray instructions. Don't give them black and white. Administrators tend to become black and white because of their function of execution. Okay. Now, both managers and administrators, their sources of power are their positions. That's why they are positions of authority, meaning in a formal organizational context. Without the formal office or formal organizational context, they cease to become managers and administrators. Now, can administrators optimize? Yes. But in this aspect, when they optimize, they are now exercising their managerial skills. Do managers execute also? Yes. But when they execute, they are now exercising their administrative skills, not their managerial skills. So yun yung pinagkaiba ng dalawa. Na yung kanilang respective traits are not present to the other. Now, what are leaders? Who are leaders? No? Now, leaders basically influence or inspire. There are many leaders who are poor managers. I'm sure you will agree with that. There are many leaders who are poor administrators. I am sure you will agree with that. And there are managers and administrators who are poor leaders also. They're very good in technical aspects, but they cannot influence people. So the leaders are those who influence. And when you speak of leadership skills, we speak of skills to influence and inspire people. Okay? Not to terrorize people or to frighten people. Although it's also one of the many techniques of leadership. Okay? Now, hopefully, a good leader has managerial skills and administrative skills. And hopefully, managers also have leadership skills and administrative skills. And administrators will also have managerial skills and leadership skills. And in my lesson number 3 in Peripatetic, the tone at the top influences the mood of the organization. So mahalaga yung nasa itaas. The leaders, the managers, the administrators, the managers of knowledge, in academic management, those who are on top, the top echelons of the organization, it's very important. Your role is very important to make or break an organization. Same with a government or a regional office. Same with that. No? The tone at the top influences the mood of the organization. So the law of influence, adapting from John Maxwell's 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. The true measure of leadership is influence and nothing more and nothing less. That's the law of influence. And if you will ask me, what are the influence sources of a leader? There is the so-called leadership influence system, okay, which denotes any change in the behavior of a person or a group of persons due to anticipation of the responses of others. There are 4 types of influence. One is coercion, which is the lowest. No, the lowest is emulation, by the way. Emulation means doing the things that you want other people to do. So parang sundin ka. So if you want people to come early to the office, then you have to come early. If you want people to do their work, you have to show that you're also doing your work. So emulation naman yun. No? Then the higher form is suggestion. No? You just don't emulate and show by example. You also suggest so that smoking is bad, that not wearing the mask is bad. And the highest form of influence is so-called persuasion. So you just don't emulate by showing by example or suggest that it's bad. You have to persuade na pag hindi ka nagsuot ng mask, ito ang mangyayari, etc., etc. You have to convince people. You have to appeal to people. Those 3 are the tools of good leadership. Coercion is the last resort, and it is not necessarily the highest form of influence. Coercion, I am your boss. I am ako ang masusunod. Kung hindi, paparusahan ko kayo. Now, good leaders will resort to coercion as the last tool. No? And in fact, many good leaders won't even resort to coercion. Okay, the 3 sources of influence are enough. Okay, sometimes when people follow you because they are coerced or they are afraid of you, that's not effective. When people follow you because they have buy-in, they believe in you, okay, because of your emulation, suggestion, and persuasion, that's the best form of influence. Coercion does not bring the best form of influence. It will only bring a forced obedience. Okay, so people will obey you because they want to, freely in their own will, because they believe in you. But if people believe in you because of fear and coercion, then it's not a good form of influence. Now, influence comes with power. Influence is power. And there are 4 types of power of a leader or of a manager. And academic managers need to also learn to acquire this power and use this power. The lowest form of power, the so-called legitimate power or position power. This is the power inherent in any position, in any formal organization. So the manager and a leader, they are inherently powerful because of their position. This is the so-called positional authority. The second form of power is political power. Okay, your connections, your friends. Okay, they should be they should offer you some power. No? Ang magaling sa political power, syempre mga politicians. No? The higher form than political power is the so-called expert power. Now, academicians generally they have expert power because of the disciplines, because of the expertise, because of the professions. So generally we have expert power. Although sometimes we fail in political power, and sometimes or even in the highest form of power, which is the charismatic power. The highest form of power is the referent power or charismatic power. Ito yung charisma or charism, no? Siguro I forgot, Eden, I'd like to have another poll here. I'd like to ask the audience, the participants, what do you think, what makes a person charismatic? Okay, let us check now what are the different sources of charisma, no? So maybe we can answer another poll. Eden, Jean, if you can create a poll again. What makes a person charismatic? Eden? Wala.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, Doc. Yes po, Doc.
Yeah.
That's a very good suggestion. We will be posting the poll, and then
Okay.
We request all our viewers and our audience to kindly answer the poll, and we will see it flash in our screen.
So the question would be, what makes a person or a leader charismatic?
Wow, very nice question, Doc. Okay. I think they have to log in the link also, and then we'll input their answer so that we can see it in the cloud.
Okay. So maybe we can wait for that.
Yes po, Doc. How about you, Doc? If I may ask, so far in your academic management, or maybe in your experience as an administrator, have you experienced to deal with a very charismatic person?
Of course. Yung kaharap ko ngayon, no? The looks can be form of charisma, no?
I remembered. Smile is the best.
Yeah. There you go.
So okay po.
So
What
participants.
makes a person, charismatic?
So there's the link now. If you can enter the link.
Okay, so while waiting for the answer, may I remind participants, our viewers from the BARMM and of course all over Philippines and even international, kindly log into this poll and write your answer. So what makes a charismatic leader? We are still getting the answers from Facebook, of HECBOL Facebook, and of course YouTube channel. So in a while, yes, Doc, here are the answers now.
Okay. So self-confidence, understanding, okay. Charm. Personality, emphatic, optimistic. Okay. Passion, understanding, the smile, very good, smile, no? Sensitivity. Okay. Passion, charm, aura, very good, aura, no? Approachability. Okay, so that should be it. So ang consistent na answer ay charm, personality, aura, no, and passion, no? So let me go back to my slide. Okay. So essentially there are many sources, no, of making a leader charismatic, no, or manager of knowledge charismatic. And this is very true this is very relevant, no, to academic managers as well, no? Because we need to be charismatic in order to influence and inspire people. Managers and administrators need to be charismatic to be able to inspire, no? To be able to lead and influence. So there are many common sources of charisma, no? Or charism, no? Charisma, no? Or referent power. Sa tawag na referent power, no? Of course, the eloquence is one, no? Public speaking, no? Eloquence is one form of charism, no? Charisma. Brilliance of ideas, but of course, the brilliance of ideas need to be articulated, so eloquence should be a partner of that. Good looks, actually. Good looks. Kaya yung mga artista natin, di ba? Maganda at mga gwapo, kahit na hindi magaling mag-acting, pero dahil gwapo maganda, minsan nakaka-influence na. So, ano ang lesson dyan for us, for academic managers? We have to look good as well. Okay? Sometimes we need to take a bath, we need to fix ourselves, we need to, so good looks, very important source of charisma. Talent is very important, no? Maraming talents, no? Manunula, mga mananayaw, kumakanta, cooking, lahat ng mga possible talents. Ngayon sa pandemic, yung talent mo, nagdi-discover natin, nagbebenta. Magaling ka pala magbenta, ba't magluto, no? So, meron tayong nagdi-discover mga talents din. And of course, the highest form of charisma is the so-called humor or witty. Minsan wala ka ng good looks, wala kang talent, wala kang brilliance of ideas or eloquence, but because you are humorous, you can command, you can have clout, you can inspire people. Now, tanong na lang ngayon is humor transferable? Can you learn humor, no? Kasi ang maraming argument yan, yung humor natural yan. Pag pinipilit mo, corny. So, wala pa ako naririnig na mga seminars kung paano maging humorous ang mga tao. Baka may maka-invento niyan. So, but once in a while, we need to be around with people who are humorous also. Para mahawa din tayo, no, ng pagiging mga humorous nila. Imagine if you have all of this, if you have cultivated all of this, no, eloquence, brilliance of ideas, okay, talent, good looks, and humor, then you can become a very effective, a very good leader as well. So that's the function of a leader. Okay, we need to inspire and to influence by using our sources of power and influence as well as our charisma. Then, okay, and here I'd like to post a quote. No, the challenge is not so much on the quest for leaders, but on the search for leadership in each and every one. And according to Keda in the movie Alpha, when there are no more leaders to follow, we must become one. And as I mentioned a while ago, these are the sources of power of the leaders and the managers and the administrators. So managers and administrators, their primary source of power is their position authority. But they can also learn expertise and political power and even charisma or referent power. So that's how they relate. And imagine power perpetuates. No? That's my lesson in Peripatetic number 54. Many have answered about responsibility, accountability, and authority, but they need to be distilled also. No? Magkaiba yung authority and responsibility and accountability. No? Responsibility is your sense of duty, the ability to respond to a situation. Accountability is your being answerable or answerability. And authority is your power or influence. No? So here, imagine, just remember, authority without accountability is dangerous. But another lesson here, responsibility and accountability without authority equals impotence also. Because now many organizations were given so much responsibility and we are made answerable or accountable. But we don't have enough authority. So just remember, as academic managers, you cannot be held responsible if you don't have authority. And of course, you cannot be held accountable if you don't have enough authority. The three needs to go together. And then if we integrate these concepts, no, any administrator, even manager, is better off if he or she has leadership and managerial acuity and leadership skills. So all of the roles, no, leaders, managers, administrators, we have the authority, responsibility, and accountability as our inherent functions also. We also need to distill and differentiate monitoring, implementation, and evaluation. Of course, we all implement. We are all administrators in our organization because we implement and execute programs and instructions. And we evaluate. Of course, we monitor. But what are the difference between the monitoring and evaluation? Evaluation is more of gauging the impact, the effectiveness. But monitoring is basically, it's just like evaluation, but you can interfere. But monitoring is really more of ensuring that the plan, the target, is the same with the actual. So as you implement, the monitor will ensure that the implementation, the actual implementation, is near the target or the plan. Kapag lumalayo si implementation from the target and the plan, si monitor can interfere and ensure that the implementation will be redirected and reoriented towards what is the targeted or what is being planned. So yun ang papel ng monitoring and evaluation. No? Magkaiba yung dalawa, doon nag-overlap din. But in monitoring, you can interfere. Okay? And there is intervention, but evaluation, no more. That's already the final stage. I'll borrow again from John Maxwell in his concept of 360 degrees leadership. Okay, many of our programs in leadership, we train people to lead down or to lead our subordinates. Okay, this because of the supervisory trainings. So we perfected leading down, according to John Maxwell. What we fail is that we fail to lead across, lead left or right, our co-equals. And all the more that we fail leading up to lead our bosses. That's why in my peripatetic lesson number 12, to win your boss, you have to think like your boss. Okay? So we need 360 degrees leadership, okay, to be able to not just lead down, but to lead left and right and to lead up. Bakit mahalaga si left and right? Kasi ito yung mga kakampi mo. No? Ito rin yung mga nakakaintindi sa'yo. Ito yung mga co-equal mo. Okay? So, that is the concept of 360 degrees leadership. No? In peripatetic leadership, we also adopt the 360 degrees leadership. If we integrate everything already. No? So, the world is better off if good leaders are in positions of authority, and leadership development is a lifetime work in progress. So the concepts a while ago in the previous frameworks of leadership, management, administrators, the concepts of authority, responsibility, and accountability, the influence, to inspire, to optimize, to execute, they are in the context of 360 degrees leadership. No? To lead down, lead right, lead left, and lead up. No? So these are the integrated triangles. No? Now, let's try to meld academic management with quality assurance. No? We need quality assurance to achieve and sustain excellence in higher education. Okay, history tells us that those who have sustained their standards, no, in higher education or in any organization, okay, have resorted to quality assurance, no, and successfully though. So, quality assurance is to ensure that mechanisms are in place to achieve desired quality outcomes. No? And CHED-CMO number 46 okay, defines quality as the alignment and consistency of the learning environment with the institution's vision, mission, and goals, demonstrated by exceptional learning and service outcomes and the development of a culture of quality. And there are three dimensions or perspectives of quality. Quality as fitness of purpose, and this can be addressed by strategic management, and you have to start with strategic planning. And the quality as exceptional, meaning your distinctive performance, your edge. Okay, anong meron ka na wala sa iba? Okay? Or saan ka nag-excel? Okay? Or quality as developing a culture of quality, meaning a system of continuous improvement. So these three are the important dimensions of quality, which is the basis of quality assurance. And the phases or some steps, no, to establish, no, quality assurance measures. Okay, first is you need to establish strategic management framework. You need to start with the roadmap, your strategic plan, your environmental scanning, then comply with the regulatory standards. Okay, your requirements with CHED, TESDA, DepEd, BIR, DOLE, DNR. These are the regulatory standards, and meet and exceed program standards. Okay. In academic institutions, for managers of knowledge, your first instrument always is the PSG for every program. These are the policies, standards, and guidelines of any program. Okay, and you do gap analysis. Okay, your current against the requirements of the PSGs. Of course, undergo accreditation, even the so-called international accords, no, per program. And then undergo independent external evaluation and certification. In the Philippine setting, our case studies here are those schools undergoing the ISA or ISA, and the ISO, and the PQA. So later on, I saw the pre-registered question about what is the role of QA during the pandemic. So I will answer that at the proper time, but this one already gives the hint, no, in terms of external certification or evaluation through the ISA, ISO, or PQA. So how do we establish strategic management framework? Conduct strategic assessment, okay, doing environmental scanning, developing roadmap, okay, you also conduct strategic planning, okay, establish your vision, mission, core values, and core competencies. Many of the schools, they only stop at identifying core values. They did not identify their core competencies, especially in the private schools. No? Articulate core functions and performance data analytics, and establish core procedures and harmonize with core functions. Ito yung systems mo. Dito tayo ino-audit ng ISO if you want to go ISO, no? For international standards. How do we align curriculum development? No? Of course, we have to implement OBE, outcomes-based education, no? Which is aligned internationally. No? Articulate demonstrable learning competencies and outcomes as graduate attributes, align with PQF, okay, Philippine Qualifications Framework, with AQRF, ASEAN Qualifications Reference Framework, and even with AUNQA, no? ASEAN Universities Network for Quality Assurance. No? So I already proposed to the CHED through Eden, no, that you will also have sessions on specifically on these international standards, no, for aligning with quality assurance, no, and design constructive alignment of learning outcomes with QA standards. So these two are heavy. No? These are big processes, okay, to establish your quality assurance to meld with your academic management. Okay. So pwede bang magaling kang academic management without quality assurance? Pwede siguro, maraming mga ganung mga karanasan, but if you learn from those schools, from those organizations who have excelled in their management and leadership development frameworks and melded with quality assurance, they also become successful. Okay? You have to invest, no, physically, emotionally, even financially. Let me just flash na about the ISA framework, or the so-called institutional sustainability assessment, which is required of all schools in the Philippines, especially for the private schools, no? Because the SUCs and the public schools, they have their own amalgamation or other standards, no, for corresponding standards. And then the ISA is mandated by CHED CMO 46, no? Because of these two premises, no? It is the moral and legal responsibility of every higher education institution to provide quality programs to students and be efficient and effective through quality systems. And then quality programs can be assessed through quality of students and graduates, and quality systems can be assessed through tools that show the internal capacity of the HEI to translate vision, policy, and strategy into quality programs and quality results. So these are the parameters: your presence of the system, extent of implementation, outcomes of the system, and effectiveness of the system. So any school will be judged by these parameters, no? And these are the different key result areas. No? I won't go into the details, no? But just to flash how the ISA as a QA measure, no, is being done for and required of all the schools, no, with the 5 key result areas. The parameters are very important as well. The PQA is another quality assurance framework mandated by EO 448 and Republic Act 9013, no? Known as the Philippine Quality Award. No? It is the highest level of national recognition for exemplary organizational performance, and the award provides for internationally comparable framework and criteria for assessing organizational performance. There are 2 sets of parameters, the so-called process parameters. You have to be evaluated by approach, by implementation, by learning and integration. And the outcomes parameters also, the learning, the trends, okay, the integration, and then the comparison. And these are the 8 categories, no, of the organization. So both ISA and PQA, and then of course ISO, are very helpful QA measures for academic institutions, okay, without pandemic, with pandemic, even with post-pandemic situations. Now, the fundamental challenges, no? The COVID-19 pandemic crisis brought massive global disruption from one crisis to another. The health, economic, social, political, even the education. No? Kagagulo tayo ngayon, no? Laging walang klase, puro online. No? And then leadership efficacy is challenged. No? Leaders in all sectors around the world are disoriented and imperiled. What leadership styles are appropriate for a perilous pandemic? And what do leaders need to prepare if another pandemic comes out? This is very important. What do leaders need to prepare if another pandemic comes out? And here I think quality assurance will play a very significant role. I'd like to quote, no, Catherine Ford, a Calgary, Australian journalist, no, who said, "Pandemics bring out the best and the worst in people. If you believe that people are inherently nice and honest, a pandemic is a great way to prove the thesis. On the other hand, it also brings out the puns, scam, those who would profiteer from the pain of others. Therefore, according to Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's soul. For consolation, our leadership mettle is both tested and strengthened in emergency situations. Again, peripatetic lesson number 1, good leaders grow in adversity. I remember vividly, last month I was also talking to a webinar lecture. I was asked, ano daw ang pinagkaiba ng leadership sa public and private sector with regard to the pandemic sacrifices. So sinabi ko, sa private sector, ang mga leaders and managers, including private schools, will have to be battle-tested. Kasi nanggaling sa gera. No? If we will survive this pandemic, leaders and managers that coming from private sector will turn out to be battle-tested as compared to the public sector. Why? Because in the public sector, they have their salaries continued, no? In the SUCs. No? Even in the public schools, the SUCs, they still continue receiving salaries even without online classes. But in the private school, no. Without classes, without students, without enrollment, schools will close. Already in Manila, in Metro Manila, 400 schools closed already. Here in Region 11, 15 schools closed already. Imagine the employees affected by that. So, our leadership mettle, if it is to be consolation, is we are really tested and hopefully strengthened in our during these emergency situations. The pandemic crisis shall end only if we develop herd immunity. And there are two ways of the herd immunity: the vaccine or the natural immunity, and the convalescence plasma or the natural immunity. Okay, itong dalawang to, we need the two if we want to end this pandemic. Okay, herd immunity became popular in the medical field in the 1930s. Okay, when the scientist Dr. Hedrich introduced the concept of this in his journal. Dr. Hedrich was documenting cases of the measles outbreaks in the US, and he observed that as many children recovered and became immune, meaning cannot be infected anymore, the spread of the measles virus also drastically reduced, and the phenomenon of getting immune in larger populations resulted in the popular theory of the herd immunity. So in herd immunity, the vaccinated protect the unvaccinated. We possess the capacity to develop immunity by being infected and overcome through antibodies, the so-called natural immunity, or by vaccination. As a theory, herd immunity is proposed to provide some form of indirect and preventive protection from infections. Herd immunity acts like the umbrella that provides cover from getting wet in the rain. Okay? But the problem is this: the immunity seems very unlikely as of now, and there is no end in sight for the crisis. How are leaders to lead? How are academic managers to lead during these pandemic situations? Leaders try very hard to overcome by thinking out of the box or even changing the box. This is the time now to think out of the box or even change the box. No? While waiting for the medical convalescence, we can cultivate leadership convalescence to promote social convalescence or collective resilience. I am proposing a leadership convalescence, which serves as the umbrella. We need to develop leadership convalescence, and during this pandemic period, we need to serve and provide umbrellas for others, with the so-called leadership convalescence. What are the traits of leadership convalescence or leadership umbrella? Leadership convalescence means continue to provide hope. I think the roles now of leaders, managers, administrators, we need to continue to provide hope. We have to be the first to sacrifice, to demonstrate leadership by example. Okay? First to sacrifice. No? And we need the leadership to protect what is good for the common good, which is the concept of collective resilience. We need to follow health safety protocols for the common good, not just our individual good or individual freedom. No? And peripatetic leadership, no? Walk the talk, silent in words, but loud in action. And like many are able to resonate with this, no? Okay, even without pandemic, no? Good leaders or peripatetic leaders, no, are silent in words, but loud in action. And of course, compassion to your flock, no? Encourage herd umbrella or social convalescence. These are the 5 traits that I propose for a leadership convalescence to exist during the pandemic period and to transition towards post-pandemic era or towards a post-pandemic condition. I think when we discovered the vaccine or developed the immunity, when we reach that stage, we need to do a lot of retooling, redoing, okay, a lot of many good things, no, that we have been doing, and we need convalescence, leadership convalescence to do that. Okay, so that is my proposal now. What can be done? How are leaders to lead during the pandemic period? And peripatetic leadership requires us to purify our principles and navigate our positions. Otherwise, we will be doing a lot of things actually that we hardly believe in. Okay, that's painful, by the way. Doing a lot of things that we hardly believe in. Most of all, what greatly matters is what mark we leave among our fellow men. And reputation counts, even in pandemic situations. Reputation counts. Okay. Habit number 9, okay, from Stephen R. Covey, leave this world better than it was when you got here. Okay, and you can even declare mission accomplished. Related to that is my most favorite, no, Athenian Oath. Everywhere I go, I always speak of this. No? From my school, okay, the Athenian Oath is an ancient Greek philosophic oath of all free governments and democratic states, of all the world's visionaries, leaders, and managers. In short, the Athenian Oath is like this, no? To leave this community, this organization, this office, better than when we found it. Better than when we found it. Okay, thank you very much, and daghang salamat. As I end with this quote, in both public and private schools, there is hunger for good leaders who embody what is good in us as a people and what we could still become if we sincerely work for it. Not leaders who simply personify our collective faults and magnify them on a devastating scale. We feel embarrassed with this national scandal of enjoying good schools and enduring bad governance. Thank you very much for this lecture. Eden, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ronnie, for that very informative presentation on academic management and leadership challenges. So I know for sure that all our audience, especially from the BARMM region, truly appreciate the insight and, of course, the lessons they gain from your presentation. So at this time, Doc, we will be entertaining our questions from the viewers. We have from the Facebook and, of course, from the YouTube. But before that, let us try to have first the pre-registered questions from our webinar.
Okay.
Okay. First question, Doc, from Grace Basilisco from Cebu Technological University, Argao campus. So her question is, what skills should we possess in order to lead in this new normal?
Yeah.
So more on leadership skills.
Yeah. Of course, we have to continue to learn and cultivate the conventional leadership, managerial, administrative skills, no? Provided by us, by textbooks, by our teachers. But during the pandemic period, I'm offering to add the skills of being the leadership convalescence skills, the 5 traits, no, that I offer, no, for us, no, to tide us away, to transition from pandemic to the post-pandemic era. Let us be like the leadership umbrella for each and every one of us. So, dagdagan ng skills na ganun.
Okay, Pundo. So more on the skills that we have to do, especially for the leaders.
Yeah.
Yes, po. Another question, and this time we have from the BARMM, from Sulu College of Technology Incorporated. This question is from Miss Arceline Ibo Taghap. So this one po, how do we overcome leadership challenges in pandemic and post-pandemic?
Yeah. So I am proposing a leadership convalescence or leadership umbrella, no? Which contains the 5 elements, no? Providing hope, walking the talk, first to sacrifice, what else? Ano ba yung nakalimutan ko yan? First to sacrifice, and then for a while, I'll go back to that. And then this one, silent in words but loud in action, and then compassion to your flock, no, for this pandemic period. So leadership convalescence is, we need that now, no, on top of our usual managerial skills, leadership skills, and administrative skills.
Yeah, so something like peripatetic, as you said, Doc, walk the talk, do not just talk the talk.
Yes.
Very nice po. Okay, another po, let us have this. I think she is an administrator from BARMM, specifically from Tawi-Tawi Regional Agricultural College, from Ma'am Arlene Sevilla. So this one, what are specific management and leadership skills one must apply in colleges situated in the southernmost frontier of the country, Tawi-Tawi, especially in Tawi-Tawi, given the pandemic with poor communication network? So can you suggest po a doable and applicable framework for school administrators and academic heads to better address this issue or concern?
Especially with areas without communication networks. Ano ba yan?
Yes po, Doc. Because in BARMM, yeah, they
Yes.
really have this kind of experience.
Yeah. That's really a real problem, because especially now, CHED encourages all the schools to deliver blended instructional delivery, especially primarily online classes, to continue the studies of the students. But in areas, especially in poor areas where there is no very poor internet connection or communication facilities, then of course you cannot do online classes. You have to go modular delivery. But again, you have also problems and constraints with travel, because of the quarantine restrictions. So I don't know if you can explore broadcast learning through your if there is radio or television facilities to air the lessons, the lecture. I don't know if you can make use of e-learning, which includes texting, SMS, even group chats, if that is possible. No? I don't know. But again, you have to. It really depends on the LGU condition, the quarantine conditions allowed by in your respective areas. But I know it's difficult, very very difficult, and not only that, there might be no students who will adapt and take and enroll, because of the hardships now. So that's a real problem. Many schools resorted to closing down because of that.
Yeah. So you are suggesting po to find all means like SMS and then group chat in order to really communicate with, of course, the students and all stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. So now let's go to our live Q&A. Let's have from the Facebook. Okay, can you see in the screen? Okay, we have here from Mr. Armada. So in the Philippines, most of our academicians are being assigned as academic managers. Do you think this practice greatly affects the scholarly performance of our universities? Example, in research, development, and extension.
Agree. Fully agree.
Agree.
Because in the olden times, the seekers of truth, who are also managers of truth, suwabe lang maybe because hindi pa ganun kalaki ang kanilang population. But now I really agree, when you are a designated or appointed to become academic managers, sometimes naiwan na yung pagiging seekers of knowledge mo, and that's sad. Kaya maraming mga afterward, maraming gustong bumalik sa pagiging seekers of knowledge, pagiging researchers. Okay? Iba naman pagtuturo, but again, yung magtuturo lang kasi, that's part of the perfunctory academicians. You are just content in teaching. But seekers of knowledge are not just teaching kasi. So I agree with you, and that's the difficulty. Kasi nga, pag na-assign ka nabigyan ka ng administrative assignment, hindi ka na maka-function as a scholar. Kaya malaking challenge, if you are able to continue doing your passion, if you can still be a prolific academics or positive academics, even if you are in a position of authority, you're holding a position, academic position, but still you're able to do research, why not? Or even teach, or even do conduct scholarly work. Kung masabay mo yun sana, Mas maganda yon. But I agree with you, no? Ngayon, mahirap ngayon kasi pag sa sobrang daming trabaho, sa laki ng bureaucracia, you cannot do both. Before, they can do both.
Yeah. I think also schools or even administrators may also find other incentives to really motivate teachers to do scholarly works.
But mahirap pa rin yan. Difficult. Difficult yan kasi you have administrative positions eh. That's difficult.
Yeah. But I think, Doc, the bottom line is never give up on research. Go lang ng go.
Yes, yes. Seekers of knowledge.
That's right, po. Okay, so let's move to the next question, please. Okay, another from Facebook Live. We have here from Mr. Punay. So what is the easy way to influence the higher ups if, let's say, you think they need to do something different?
Okay, very good. Depende. If you are an ally of the higher ups, okay, then you can openly influence or suggest or recommend your bosses. Okay, but if you are not an ally, hindi kayo makakampi, okay, do not contradict your higher ups in front of other people. Better do backdoor. As a general rule, as I found out in my research in Peripatetic, as a general rule, bosses do not want to be contradicted in front of other people. So do not contradict your boss in front of other people. You better do backdoor. Okay? Of course, wag mong sabihin na nagkamali siya in front, no? Because they will be embarrassed. So just think of the embarrassment factor. Better still do a backdoor. Sige. So, yun yung ano ko, yun yung ko.
Something to do with, as what I've learned, ambassadorial skills, Doc.
Yeah, because of the ambassadorial skills, yes.
Yeah, so something different, like do it in different way. Okay.
Effective ang backdoor skills, by the way. Effective ang backdoor skills. We can learn how to do backdoor skills. Kasi karamihan ng open in public, it will be sometimes it can be construed as grandstanding or politicking, no? So I think we have to be aware of the sensitivity also. So grandstanding is the risk, no, if you do that openly. So the countermeasure there is to be effective doing backdoor, especially if it is unpopular or contradicting your bosses. Do a backdoor.
Wow, very interesting, Doc. Can you maybe suggest or cite a concrete example on this one?
Which one?
Yeah, so that our backdoor skills po.
Okay. For example, your boss has announced something in public and you think the boss is wrong. So you cannot say, boss, you're wrong in front of the other people. No, during the backdoor, during the break time, o kayong dalawa na lang ng boss mo, pwede mo siyang sabihan, boss, medyo nagkamali tayo doon sa sinabi natin. That's backdoor. And then let the boss rectify himself. If he will not rectify, she will not rectify, wala tayong magagawa. But that's example of the backdoor. You will not be in trouble there. Pero kung sinabihan mo siya in public, boss, nagkamali ka, no? Maaring tama ka, pero others might see it as impolite or you'll be seen as grandstanding. Especially in our culture. Maybe in Western culture, they can be frank, by the way. No? So, pwede siguro sa kanila yan. But in the Filipino culture, in Oriental culture, mukhang mahirap to. Based on my research sa Peripatetic, by the way.
Yeah, I remember, Doc, you made mention that we have to praise in public and criticize in private.
Private, yes, correct. That's the best way of earning respect. No? If you want to earn respect of your people, praise in public and reprimand in private. No? Kahit nagkamali yung tao, never, as much as possible, do not reprimand in public. If you have to reprimand in public by necessity so that others will serve as an example, then just do it as a matter of strategy, not as a matter of style, not as a matter of orientation.
Wow, thank you very much, Doc. So let's have another question, please. So we have from Miss Judith Alindayo. So this one po, how do we show authority as educators in this new normal setting of education?
Okay, if we define authority as vested in our nature of our work, which is to provide education, okay, therefore our authority should emanate, no, in providing, halimbawa, online classes. Okay, many would not want online classes, but especially private schools, if you want to survive, there's no other choice but to offer online classes. Definitely, you cannot offer residential F2F classes because it's prohibited. So the other way is offer online classes blended with other modes, no? Electronic learning, online learning, mobile learning. So that's for you to survive. You have to exercise authority on that. Otherwise, we will lose authority. That is one. Secondly, there is massive call for mass promotion. Okay, even CHED does not encourage mass promotion. Many schools will not do that, no, because for the basic reason that it is unfair for those who have really labored hard, no. Then the iba naman rider lang. So we need to assert our authority as vanguards of standards, as vanguards of academic excellence. We are, when we say we are seekers of knowledge, it also means we are guardians of knowledge. Okay? Kasi if we give into, halimbawa, if we give in yield to mass promotion, then we are not anymore guardians of knowledge. We promote mediocrity, we yield, okay, to mediocrity. So those are the two examples of exercising authority as academicians, no, in our the nature of our schools, no. Yung dalawang yun, mahalaga yun.
That's right. I agree with you, Doc. So especially for the teachers and for the administrators, they really have to execute authority.
Yeah. But of course,
So,
we need to be tempered with leniency, no? So tama naman yun, dahil nga mahirap ng panahon ngayon, we cannot just impose blind standards or blind excellence. So we have leniency. How do we exercise leniency? So even deadlines, baka pwedeng extend ang deadlines. Kung talagang mababagsak na yung estudyante, pwede bang wag mo na ibagsak, i-incomplete lang muna. Ganun ba? And as per OBE, we are supposed to provide expanded opportunities of learning. So that in itself is already a form of exercising leniency. Other groups equate leniency with mass promotion, no? So extreme naman masyado yun. So ibang-iba, there are many forms of leniency naman to still guard knowledge and truth.
yes, I remember that's what Dr. Alonso said, that in terms of assessment, there are many ways really to help students, not just focus on the grades, but also the results.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, Doc, let's have another question, please. Okay, another from Facebook. We have from Miss Conding. So, do you think Philippine education is well managed by the government, DepEd or CHED? Yeah, so maybe in your viewpoint.
Yeah. Can I also reflect on that question? I cannot answer now for the question. Maybe,
Yeah, for the time being.
yeah, maybe the best gauge, the best time to tell is after the pandemic. After the pandemic. Of course, there are many good things, there are many bad things as of now, no? But to really come up with a summative evaluation, assessment of that, baka hindi po na. Baka walang makapagsabi sa ngayon.
Yeah, because we are all learning. This is new to us.
Yes.
Okay, so next let's have from the YouTube. So this one, given the new normal, how can we assure that students become mentally and emotionally resilient in the time of crisis, considering the big changes in our education system?
Okay.
From
So,
Mr. or Ms. Rohay.
Yeah, that's why I'm offering leadership, the concept of leadership convalescence. As educators now, let us try to be like the umbrella, okay, to promote resilience. And as leadership, for leadership convalescence or leadership umbrella, kahit temporary lang yan, we have 5 traits for that, right? Okay. if we can extend that not only to our employees, to our teachers, but also to our students, no? Assure them, of course, give them support, no? That is already an exercise of the convalescence, no? Kahit naman tayo, we don't possess the formula yet, no? But we can only do so much actually. So that so much is actually becoming an umbrella for each and every one of us.
That's right. We can only do so much, but we really have to do it. Especially
Yeah.
the term resilience, Doc.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So let's have another one, please. This one from Emmanuel. Good afternoon, Doc. What will be the best way to deal with those managers or leaders who are very insensitive to their subordinate? I
Very
think
good.
Emmanuel is from University of Mindanao.
Ganun ba?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a continuing problem. Okay? Depende. Kung ikaw ang nasa itaas, at alam mo yan, pwede mo mapagsabihan. Kung ikaw naman na nasa ibaba, ipagdasal mo na lang muna. Kung may paraan para mapagsabihan mo siya, maka-reach out ka through backdoor means, why not? But otherwise, you have to pray. Pag pinipilit mo masyado, baka ikaw mapapasama ka pa. No? In my peripatetic book, there's a lesson there on proper timing. Okay? The law of the timing. And timing needs to be found. Needs to be. Walang hard and fast rule sa timing. Needs to be found. So minsan, nagdadasal mo, ito ba yung good timing or bad timing? So hanapin yung good timing.
Yeah, and I think the best timing is yung hindi mainit ang ulo ng boss.
That's one.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel. So let's have another question to go, Doc. From Orlando, I think Mr. Orlando Fajardo. Can schools be managed remotely? No physical presence during the pandemic? So how?
Yeah. Okay, if you look at those schools which closed, no? Because all of their systems were residential in nature, meaning face-to-face talaga. Those schools who continued to operate, okay, especially the big schools, even if they have reduced enrollment, because even before the pandemic, they were already doing blended programs or even using technology, meaning they can conduct meetings remotely, okay, through technology. They can hold classes through online technology even before the pandemic. So somehow technology, those schools which used technology before, somehow became prepared to face the pandemic. So I think, can schools be managed remotely, no physical presence during the pandemic period? Yes, and they have to. Otherwise, they will not survive. Many schools are just starting to learn technology now. So some are coping up, but some really closed down. And true to other organizations as well.
Okay, Doc. So I think in the interest of time, and of course, I know you are very busy. So I think we have to close our live question and answer. So with this, Doc, I would like to thank you for sharing your expertise and, of course, the many lessons in this webinar. Thank you so much, Doc Ronnie.
So
And
Eden,
any last words?
yeah, for those who are interested, we are proposing with the HECBOL the online executive course, or for those who are interested also, they can just get in touch with me also to deepen on the different strategies and frameworks of this. And then for those who are interested to acquire the book, if you are near any Vibal bookstore or outlet, you can buy my book there. So thank you very much also, Eden.
Thank you, Doc. Last message for our viewers po about academic management and leadership.
Good luck.
Last message. Good luck. Yes. All the best.
Try to be an umbrella for each and every one of us. Try to exercise leadership convalescence.
That's right, Doc. So that's the takeaway now. Leadership convalescent. Again, thank you very much, Doc Ronnie. In behalf of CHED-HECBOL, we would like to really express our sincerest gratitude for sharing your time and expertise in this webinar. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now let's have the synthesis of this webinar. So in this webinar, we were able to know the concepts of academic leadership. And of course, we have the so-called peripatetic leadership. So we have the walk the talk, not just talk the talk. So we also know the concept of eucracy, the framework of the leadership triangle as presented by Dr. Ronnie Amorado, and of course, the sources of the powers of leader, specifically on the referent power, the power of the charisma. And also, we were able to know the ISA framework on quality assurance. And the last one, we were able to have a glimpse of the fundamental challenges by this COVID pandemic in academic leadership. So again, in behalf of CHED-HECBOL, and of course, CHED Central, we would like to thank you for your continued support in our webinar. In behalf of also of the CHED-HECBOL team headed by Dr. Nelia A. Alibin, my colleague, Sir Jean, Yani and Ephraim, we would like to thank you for your support, and more webinars will be given. So please don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feedback form of this webinar will be sent within an hour after those who have registered. You can fill out the feedback form until August 10, 2020 at 5 p.m. After filling out, that's the time you will receive your certificates via email. But please make sure that the email address that you send is correct. So this has been Eden Stephanie Bolido, your host for today, saying we learn and we continue to ensure quality in education. So we educate as one, CHED-HECBOL Online. Good afternoon, everyone.